I was born in a little town in Waverly, Virginia. It's near Newport News. I grew up in Newport News, Virginia. I went to high school there, and my family is still there. I have a brother that's there and a sister, and I have nieces and nephews, and it's a wonderful area. I go back all the time now, and it's so nice because my daughter is in Hampton, Virginia, because she attended Hampton, and my son is in Newport News. He attended Norfolk State, so I get to go home and I get to see my kids because they sort of are now in my city where I grew up, and it's really a nice thing. Well, when I went to school, I graduated in 1963 from high school, and during that time, integration was not happening. So my high school was George Washington Carver High School, and I recall there was a white high school before we got to my high school, and the bus was right past the white high school, and of course they would stick their tongue at us and make fun faces and everything, but things were at that time, we're not really mingling with whites, and we had our separate high schools, we had our separate football games, our separate basketball games, everything was segregated, so it was a whole different world today than what it was when I was growing up in Virginia. Yeah, at college, I went to Howard University right out of high school. I went there for 2 years, and of course during that time I wasn't doing very well in terms of the academics because, we were partying all the time. Howard was a party school, so I went there for 2 years, and then I left, and then I moved to New York, and I lived in Brooklyn, New York. I lived 2 years in Manhattan, and I graduated from Long Island University in Brooklyn, New York. They had a Brooklyn campus, and I went there, and when I left there is when I moved to Buffalo to go to law school. But my upbringing was from Virginia to New York City, then to Brooklyn, New York, and then to Buffalo, New York. I was talking to my husband about that today, and I was trying to think of when I became the executive attorney of the Legal Aid Bureau. I followed an older white male who had been there for years, and I never forget that I got appointed because there was somebody on the board that voted for me that no one thought that person would vote for me. I think it was a majority person. And when I became the executive attorney, people were just amazed because at that time I was a young black female, a young African-American female that headed this agency that had pretty much a predominantly white staff. So that was significant, mostly about how I got elected, because I had no idea that I would be selected for that position. And when I got it, of course, I had to take it on. And I would never forget this one white female attorney said to me, I had to lay off a number of employees, and she said to me, you get to keep your job and I lose mine. Like, that's against the law of nature. You get to stay here and I got to go. So that was really significant that I was able to secure that position and really stay there until I got elected to the city court. That was quite interesting. I have a history of always, as I was saying to you earlier, Barbara, when I was younger, I voted for everything. And I volunteered for everything. I didn't see a committee that I didn't want to be on. I didn't see an organization that I didn't want to chair. And at that time, I thought it was a challenge. I said, I'm going to apply for this position. I didn't think I would get it, but I applied for it. And when I got it, I had to step up and perform. So that's the lesson, that when you get into these positions, you have to perform after you get there. Probably running for office, running for city court, because when I ran for city court, I think the only female, the African-American female that was on the city court bench was Barbara Sims. So I was the second person to run for city court. And I was the first African-American female to get elected to state Supreme Court. And I ran for city court 2 times and lost. And the first time I ran for chief judge. And everybody said, now how can she be chief judge if she's not even a judge? And I wasn't a judge, but I ran for chief judge. That goes to show in terms of confidence, that you're going to run for something that you weren't, I guess everybody thought you weren't qualified for. I didn't think I would win, but I figured it was a challenge, so why not try? So I lost the first time, I lost the second time, and I sat out the third year, and then I ran that fourth time, and I was elected to city court. And from then on, it was just one bench after another. First, state Supreme Court, I ran for that position twice, and I got elected both times. And then the governor at that time appointed me to, Governor Patterson, if you remember him, he appointed me to the appellate division. And when I got to the appellate division, I think from Buffalo, I was the first African-American female to sit on the appellate division also. Because at that time, the only other judge before me was Barbara Sims. And she never left city court. Oh gosh, I should have written that down. But when I served, city court was a 10-year term, so I served 10 years there. And then Supreme Court was a 14-year term, so I served 14 years there. And then I got appointed to the appellate division, and that was like, I served 5 years before I retired. So I would say all total about 30 plus years, all total. That's a good one in terms of community service, most challenging. I didn't really give that much thought, but all the community positions that I've served in have been really something that was in my wheelhouse. I was able to do that. And I don't think there was any that was difficult. I didn't find it difficult because, like I said, I like being in charge and I like organizing and so on. So, and I guess maybe now that I'm older, the challenge is different because I have to keep everything organized. You know, it's not like before when I could run from one thing to another. Now I have to write everything down. I have to remember which meeting I have to go to, and you know, sometimes I have 2 and 3 a day. So that's part of the challenge, is trying to organize now and keep things pretty much, keep everything moving smoothly, which was not a challenge when I was much younger. I guess the main thing, the thing that I've learned is that confidence. That, you know, you need to step up to the plate and take on challenges. You know, people are going to always second guess you and think you can't do it. But you need to be prepared, you need to take on a challenge, and then you need to perform. And you shouldn't be afraid to do that. You should always feel confident that I can do whatever I set out to do. So I think young people need to step up. They need to volunteer to do community service so that they can get the experience. And they need to run for office. We need to have certainly more elected, and not politicians, I'm talking about not judges, but certainly elected politicians running for state house, running for, you know, the federal government. When I say federal government, I mean running for Congress, right, thank you. Because we got a position now that's opening up, and it would be nice if some young people stepped up and did that. But, you know, you have to really, though, be prepared, and you have to know that you can do the job, because otherwise, you know, you get there, everybody's going to say you can't, and they're going to really try to stop you and oppose you. So you have to be confident in yourself and your abilities. Well, I just want to say that I think that this is a wonderful opportunity for us to share our experience now that we are older and we've been through a lot, we've seen a lot. So hopefully some young person can look at these videos and maybe learn something from it, glean something from it, and say, if she can do it, then I can do it also. Because what we want to do is set the path for the young people so they can keep moving on. Because we can't stop now. There's a lot to do, and there's a lot of things happening now that wasn't happening when I was growing up. I mean, the gun violence, you know, every time you turn around, somebody's being shot to death. You know, these things weren't happening when I was young. So now we need people to kind of take on these positions so that we can really kind of mobilize and stop some of this violence. I'm just appalled at the violence out there, and I like to see our young people get involved in that. And like I say, run for office, get elected so that you can pass legislation that can make a difference.